I, like many of you guys, have seen the discourse online about Final Fantasy XVI's side quests. Some people are praising them while others are downright hating on them. I'd be lying if I didn't say I had my ups and downs with the side quests. And some of this discourse is even extending to the main quests in the game that feel like filler, mainly the content in between the main scenario stages. The big action-packed ones with lots of bosses and cool stuff. I enjoyed the first few side quests I did because it helped build the world and the characters, and it made me really care about the people in Cid's hideaway and the other supporting cast of characters. But then as I continued to play the game, I just wanted to experience the main story, and it felt like some of the side quests were just kind of getting in the way. And this also extends to some of the quote-unquote filler content in between the main story missions, where we meet lots of different characters who seem irrelevant at the time and to the overall story, but in actuality they're set up for more satisfying quests. I'll get into that later. By the time I reached the end of the game, I was desperate to finish it, but people online told me there are certain side quests you do not want to miss before finishing the game. So I was like, okay. I reluctantly sought out these side quests, and oh boy, was it worth it. At this point in the game, we've grown to really love Gav. It's really nice learning more about his backstory and why he's so self-conscious about himself and lacks confidence in his abilities, especially as a leader. This was the moment that Gav entered the top tier characters in the game for me. And who could forget the moment when Gav is excited to meet that little baby and he's like, "Come meet your Uncle Gav." It's a precious moment. Then was the side adventure with Joshua, where Clive and Joshua got their armbands together, and then they went to go see their father's grave. And this was a much needed dose of content. Joshua and Clive interact quite a bit near the end of the game, but it's this side quest in particular that really gives us those tender moments that the main story quest doesn't provide. And of course, Torgal's grand quest to like the video and ravage that subscribe button. But in all seriousness, I love to see Torgal's development throughout the game. We get a number of side quests with him, and the final one is very personal. I unlocked a hidden island, which happened to unlock a trophy because it was the last piece of the map I had unlocked. And it's through this side quests and the previous side quests that we see just how loyal and dependable Torgal is, and is unarguably the bestest of boys. And how can we forget about Jill's side quest? Up until we received Shiva's power, I wasn't even 100% sure Clive and Jill were together. But they clearly were on the shores of Ash. But it was the side quest we went on with Jill, finding the perfect spot by the ocean with the white flowers. This moment truly cemented their love and was the culmination of their entire relationship and their entire journey together. It was absolutely sweet, and I think it rivals many of the most romantic scenes in any Final Fantasy game. Truly spectacular. I really hope we get a DLC for Jill, a backstory DLC, if you will, that ends with a battle between Shiva and Titan. Fingers crossed. So when I finally finished the game, the more emotional moments hit that much harder because of those awesome side quests. If you're worried about spoilers at this point, here's a big spoiler. It made Clive's and Joshua's deaths hit that much harder. Gav is just completely distraught, but he's still hopeful for the future, and he's proud of what Clive and Joshua did. And Jill is just destroyed, just torn apart, and it's so sad to see, especially after getting that sweet, tender moment in that final side quest. And again, I believe it rivals some of the saddest moments in any Final Fantasy. But this is when the side quests began to take a nosedive for me. After I completed the game, I was just running through side quests to basically get all the achievements and get all the collectibles and best gear, best weapons, what have you. And then it really started to sink in that, like, okay, so now I'm doing all these side quests with all these characters that we did see during the story, but it was all during the filler moments. None of it really felt like it culminated to that big conclusion at the end. But as I continued to finish side quest after side quest after side quest, I realized I was wrong. That's when I realized all those filler moments were set up for very satisfying side quests. Many of the different characters we meet at the hideaway and in between some of the more important moments in our journey all had these small little parts, all of which helped build the world, but were set up for very satisfying side quests. One that comes to mind was Theodore's tragic end. He just wanted what was best for his sister. He'd do anything for her. When he went full Akashic and had to be killed off, you can see the torment in Elise's face, and it's heart-wrenching. We wouldn't have had that moment if we'd not had that setup before. Quentin ended up having a really interesting story too. He became the backbone of Lostwing, somebody all the people could rely on. And then they lost their home, but they didn't lose their hope, because wherever Quentin was, they had hope, and that was their home. Of course, we're all familiar with Blackthorn and the Blacksmith Blues questline. Not only does it end with one of the best weapons in the game, with each side quest we learn more about Blackthorn. We learned about his insecurities and how he left his blacksmithing village because he knew his ideals would clash with what was best for his hometown. I think we all love Lubar, that cheeky bastard. He ended up being a bearer. When the village found out he was a bear, everybody turned on him despite everything he had done. Their home wouldn't be the same without him. And I believe they all knew that too. I think the village all had a shared lapse in judgment because of the cultural association with bears. But once they got a firm reality check, they came to their senses and they put their prejudice aside and they saw him for who he really was, the leader that they need. Isabelle's backstory was actually quite surprising, how she had to abandon the noble life she knew because she fell in love with a bear. And even after losing the love of her life, she continued to help her new community that her and her love built together. I could really go on and on. There were a lot of really good characters and a lot of really good side quests. But I think what's important is that if I had done all of these before the end of the game, it all adds to that climax. And I didn't really appreciate that before, because we spend the whole game learning about this world and seeing the people who live in it, and all of them have contributed to Clive's journey in some small way. Clive is not just fighting for the people he loves, but he's fighting for all the people of Valisthea. With all that being said, there were quite a few side quests that were pretty fetch questy and with lots of seemingly useless dialogue, and even I had to drudge through some of them. But many of them, especially the quests that end with like a momentum, those ones are truly worth it.
Not because of the momentum itself, but because I was invested more in these side quests and they had more personal stakes.
I hope I've changed your guys' mind about some of the side quests and properly defended them. If there were any other side quests that really spoke to you that I didn't mention in this video, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. I'd hate to overlook something important, because I think I did most of the important ones, but you can never be too sure. Thanks for watching, guys. I super duper appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.